Hello, Lisa Michelle.
Hey, hey, hey.
Here we are with Courageous Conversations on a Monday afternoon. And I know you just got back from Big Sur, and I'm sitting here in the lobby of the Elizabeth Hotel in Fort Collins. And today we're going to talk about magic and how that impacts the lives of midlife women. Are you ready?
I'm so ready. I just have had an incredibly magical experience of magic upon magic upon magic. And so I'm so ready. I'm so ready.
Okay. You're worn out from your adventure, your magical adventure.
I am worn out. I'm worn out for sure. Um, which sounds so strange to say, right? Like when I've just been gifted and gifted and gifted and I think just the driving and I'm a little tired. I
And
just
you
took
were
a
hiking like thousands of miles, hundreds of miles. You're a big hiker. That's a magical thing.
I love hiking because exactly that, because it opens me up to the magic of nature, which I have not lived my life in awareness of. So it's a good thing.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, like when you talk about the Waldorf method and stuff like that with your kids, I'm like, wow, that would really awaken magic. And I
Yeah.
was talking about you this weekend in that specific context because we went into
Oh,
a toy store called like Thinker Toys in Carmel. And I was like,
you
that's
were in
so
Carmel?
yes.
Okay. I just got off a Zoom call with a woman who lives in Carmel and she's moving to Big Sur. And I,
Oh,
I was telling, I'm
they're
sorry to interrupt
20
you, but
minutes apart.
okay, well, I have some really, the topic we were talking about earlier that we won't bring up today, I have a really good memory about that in Carmel from, it was like 40 years ago, but those memories die hard, especially in Carmel. Okay,
I think
so
they
anyway,
live hard in that context.
was it a yeah. Was it a Waldorf toy store with a lot of wooden toys or
No, it made me think of how the contrast between you gifting your children their imagination, which fits right into magic, right? Because you were providing toys via nature, right?
Mhm.
And so they used their imagination. I, on the other hand, was that mom that was buying thinker toys. So I loved like the Playmobil things. I loved the Connects. I loved the Lincoln Logs. There was a certain brand of puzzle that I liked. I liked things that, got them thinking about history. And that's all great. And I'm grateful that I did follow Charlotte Mason because that got me getting my kids out in nature. So there was that. And I recognized on this trip, I was like, oh, how cool to provide. And I had just come off this huge hike, right? So I'm like, how cool to provide nature as the resource for the imagination. Because the things that I saw on this trip literally astounded me. In fact, I may have to
The
step away
beauty
and
of
grab
it, the
something.
beauty, or were you like meeting gnomes and fairies and stuff like that?
It felt like I was meeting gnomes and fairies, and this is why. We stop on a street, and there are these flowers that looked like lanterns with a light bulb,
Oh, that's so cool.
dangling from
Yeah.
below. And
Uh-huh.
they were shaped like a bell, and they were red, and they had yellow, kind of framing them down as though it was just painted perfectly on this bell. And then the little, what I made up, the little ringer, and it looked like a place a fairy would inhabit, right? Like, yeah, of course, it's fairyland. And they go and they ring the bells. And then my girlfriend and I, so I'm 51, she's 62, and we are literally crawling on our hands and knees under a tree because I want to call them acorns. I don't know what you but
Oh,
out it was a eucalyptus tree, so the seeds of the tree, whatever, they had crosses in them. Then there were five-pointed stars. Then there were six-pointed stars. Here's some magic. They grow on the same tree. And then they had like Look it. Can you see this?
Oh, God.
That looks like a perfect button, right? With that little
Oh, I've
cross.
seen those. Oh, I
Look
love
at
those
that.
things.
That is a
Yeah,
5-pointed.
yeah,
And then there were 6-pointed. And then
yeah,
there were little hats. And
yeah.
it, we looked like 4 and 5-year-old. And we are crawling and we are finding them. And we're it was just magical.
I totally get it. Yeah, that's those were our toys for sure. I love those things. And although we did buy the very expensive hand painted German toys that
Yes, the
came with
Schleich.
what?
Was it Schleich? Was that the brand?
There were a
Oh,
lot of brands,
I just
but
remember these German toys that I think it was Schleich, and they were hand painted and they had animals and soldiers and all kinds of stuff.
yeah, really, really art. I mean, it's art, really.
It's art. It's
So,
fabulous.
so I love that you guys are doing that. And the thing, I mean, we can go back and forth for sure on this. Like, I just want to comment that the thing about magic is it's not magic. It's like all around us. We close ourselves off into these mental prisons because we had to go to school and sit in those desks with that guy behind us that was always weird. I don't know why it was always like
This
that. There was always like
hard
one weird,
desk. I
well,
remember
was
this
there
boy
always
because
like a weird boy behind you that would like,
there were sometimes cute boys behind me. Because, like this one, we were cleaning at our desks and he sat right behind me. And then he handed me a rock. And this is like third grade. And he goes,
okay.
"Love is like a rock." And here I am, 51 years old. And I remember.
I feel really grateful that we're moving on to the topic that I have the most interest in right now. I don't know if it's just spring, but yeah, I'm totally up for weird guys coming up behind me, offering me a rock. If he's cute, not weird, cute. Yeah, where do you
Yeah,
find
this
those
one
guys
was cute.
now?
I remember him.
There was only
Um,
one well, no, there were probably 5 or 6. Anyway.
so, but that's exactly okay. So, my girlfriend and I, we had some of the most amazing conversations. But one of the things, as we were literally so alive to the magic our
Mhm.
entire trip, and there's one thing that happened on our trip that nobody, like, I don't think most people would describe as magical, but it too played into the magic, and I'll share that in a minute. But the adage, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Mhm.
And maybe we could say it this way, when your eyes are open, the magic's already there.
Mhm.
Like, it's not, there was, and I felt like this trip, and I told you this earlier, like it was an invitation to keep my eyes intentionally open for the magic that's already there, that abounds in everyday life, that is just like, that gives that full on confidence that I am fully supported, fully loved. There's a plan, there's a path, nothing is meaningless. Everything has, like, what is it that you always say, Michelle? Like, it's like you get to play when you recognize there's some phrase you use that talks about life being a playground, and it's in this context of being fully supported.
I don't know what it
Well,
is.
well,
For sure,
it'll.
that's the truth. I mean, it's all, I don't know what it is, but whatever
No,
you
no, but
say.
I'm sure that's the truth.
No, but I mean, it's true that everything we need and are and can be delighted by, we just aren't having the eyes to see it. I
Mhm,
mean, that's why the topics that we've had before about letting go
mhm.
and the whole thing we talked about last week, it's just shedding the veils so that
Yes.
we can receive and see the magic. And I think it's a world now where maybe this is optimism again. Forgive me if this is optimism, but I think it's it's just the truth that we live in a world now where you can see, if you want to see, like everything is here for us. And the magic of magic is that it's not magic, right? It's like, it's just, everything is magical. Oh, I know what I was going to say. All those cool things you were seeing in nature. The other cool thing about Waldorf is that when you learn geometry, they start with things like that. You just start wandering around, picking up things in nature, and you learn geometry from like the designs. You start with
Wow.
sacred geometry. And why is it
Love
sacred?
that.
Because it's made there. This is the truth about the world. It's a beautiful, sacred, magical place. And we are part of that. We're not separate from it. We're just
Yeah.
always looking to like reconnect from feeling separate all the time, which brings us back to the boy. No, I'm kidding. Sorry. My mind is very crazy. It's very focused. I'm living in desire. Okay.
So one of the things I said that we had so many amazing conversations. Well, being 62, Laura's lived through some things, including the recession, and they're business owners and have a thriving company, and went through a very hard time of leaning out and purification and all of this stuff. And for
Purification.
well, purification in the sense of there's something about suffering that's an intense experience that refines us, right? Like it just, we see things more clearly. We know what truly matters. And so in the purification, this is what she came to see. And I think this is beautiful and underscores what we're talking about. She said, we think we know what we want. We think we know what's good, right? And And yet, in this process, so much was gained for her and her husband and their business and their clarity and their future and their prosperity and legacy and all the things. And it was a deeply painful, hard, excruciating time that they navigated together, and they did not know the outcome. And she said, and I wouldn't change a thing. Now, she would not have naturally came and said, hey, this is, what I'd really like? Can we just go through a recession and have everything in question and need to let go of most of our employees and not know if we're going to make it and go through that intense fire? And no, they didn't choose that. And yet she's like, but that's part of the magic. We don't know what we want. And then we get to the other side of something and we're like, I couldn't be where I am today. I couldn't have. So, more personal, more close to home, when my fiance died, my immediate, like everything in me, this is bad, this is wrong, this is right. And my whole body felt like it was broke open. And there was a way in which it really was. Well, part of what prepared me to see magic differently, or to live in a posture of surrender, or a not my will but thine be done framework, which is a continual process, by the way, it's not just like, is that there really is like, I couldn't be this woman. I wouldn't even have the vocation I have. I wouldn't have the magic that's in my life today, even though I never would have planned that. I never would have chosen it. I thought it was the most terrible tragedy. And I can look today and say, and that's part of the magic that brought me to where I am. Like, and that doesn't, it's not like that meant that when I was going through it, I was just like, it's great. No. And yet that's part of the harvest of my suffering. And that was how we were framing it. What are things that you harvested from the difficult times you went through? And we were very much living like we were experiencing as much life and presence in the moment as the as a result of the purification process I was just talking about. Like it just
Yeah.
awakened us to a new way of seeing the world that before I was not as open to. I'm not going to say that I didn't see any magic before. It just was not my, and even now, I feel like the magic in my life keeps growing, and it's not growing because everything is rainbows and butterflies and I don't know, hearts that smell like roses. Like that's not my thing.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I love that. It's absolutely true. I mean, that's where I think that's just classic life, right? Like that's where your message is, your message comes from. That's where people garner their purpose. They may live purposeless, and when you heal, you know that your purpose is to assist others in that very process. So yeah, that's for sure magical. I think that I don't know, I just have always believed in magic because to me it just means that you allow your, like we talked the other day about how the word magic comes from imagination, right?
Hmm.
And that's
Hmm.
all it is to me, is like seeing the possibility. So it's, even I always bring everything back to sales. I don't know why, but to me, that's what the sales process is. It's allowing people to see the magic and to receive the gift they really may not even know they need, or they know it somewhere, but you're just helping them connect with what's possible for them and bet on themselves or invest in themselves and serve that part of them, that bigger opportunity. Like to me, that's magic, baby.
Well,
It-
so I would like to talk more about this specifically around the sales process because here's what I've noticed, and this is your level of expertise, and so I'd love to get your feedback specifically through that lens of magic, right? Like you are allowing someone to bet on themselves. And so someone says yes. They say yes to a big bold vision, and there's a big bold financial investment to hold them into the magic, right?
Mhm.
I've experienced several times that when people are left to themselves, they've already said yes, they already see that there is something. They've got a hope, they've got something that is pulling them forward. And then they go and that the natural what it would like default is to shrink back into what's comfortable. And there
That's
are a lot, and
yeah.
so navigating that, like what is your experience with helping people to press into the magic of possibility when that presents this foreign unknown and the natural response is to shrink back into the smallness of fear? How do you help them stay the course, or
That
what?
yeah, that's what coaching is about, right? So that's the function of money. I mean, I know I'm being kind of silly, but it really is true. I know, and one thing that just came in my mind is that there's a cliche about salespeople, that salespeople are always willing to buy things. Like we love to be sold. I get really sad when somebody gives up on me. And I'm very
Mhm.
consciously aware of, like, I don't know, who was I talking to the other day? I can't remember, but I literally was saying to them, I'm trying to help you sell me. I want you to sell this to me. I want you to, because what they are doing is standing alongside you, telling
Mhm.
you, it's like, think of going into a really expensive clothing boutique,
Mhm.
and you know you could go find the same thing somewhere else, if you really, probably at the thrift store, right? If you
Okay.
something just as satisfying, but you really want to justify it and you can't do it on your own.
Mhm.
So you really want that salesperson to give you eye contact the second you walk in the store, because you want to feel that your identity, you want to feel worthy, right? And it's that experience. So to me, sales is simply taking their hand and saying, I see in you what you wish you could see more clearly in yourself. And
Mm,
I'm going to tether you to your vision. And not only that, but I'm going to take you from doubt to certainty, from confusion to clarity, from harsh, cold reality of your present circumstance. And I'm going to take you into the imagination where you
mm,
can really fully live into yourself. Because that, my dear, is who you were born to be.
mm.
Put on this dress and look in the mirror. And yesterday I was listening to, I actually, this is, I'm putting it in this thing that I was writing, but um, I was listening to Julie Andrews' version of Cinderella, um, Impossible on YouTube.
Okay.
And I love that version. Not that I have memorized every version of Cinderella, but it's a possibility that I have. No, I'm kidding. But that version is so awesome because the fairy godmother, like Cinderella says, so anything is possible. Is that true, fairy godmother? And the fairy godmother is like, well, maybe. And she's not selling her on it. She's making her reach out and commit. It's like, put your deposit down. How committed are you? You know, I'll take you there. I'll give you the dress, but you have to say to me. And she's like, I'm saying it with intention. I'm saying, no, she says, I officially am saying, I want a pumpkin to turn into a carrot, a golden carriage. I want the mice. I'm saying it officially. Like she's pulling this out of her, right?
Hmm.
And that comes from that little song of in my own little corner in my own little room, right? It's like, well, how big can you think? How big do you want to be? And all we're doing is being who we really are.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's what magic is. So I think sales is blessing people by allowing them to see who they can really be.
Yeah.
Their heart,
Yeah.
their heart is begging them to do it. And you
So
can't do it alone.
it's so interesting because I have been revisiting. There's a podcast called Naming the Real, and Brandon Cook is the host. Anyway, he did a 4, 5, maybe even 6 part series. Who cares? But the series is on the levels of spiritual development, and it's centered around Scott Peck's work. And I
Mhm.
think the book that he writes about it in is called A Different Drum. Okay, so I am totally engaging what you said about sales. I have not taken a hard right, even though it sounds like that right now. At least I'm making up in my head it sounds like that. So just a quick thing about the 4 stages. It's like one is total chaos, right? Chaos coming into order with rigid boundaries fixed. At some point, that way of doing spirituality in whatever version, right, in whatever part of life, and it's all nuanced, it's not completely linear, but for the sake of describing them, I'll go there. So, chaos, rigidity. Then at some point, that doesn't work, and it it goes into a level of ambiguity, which may feel like the original chaos, right? But now it's a time of questioning. It might be a time of cynicism. It's a time of reorienting to spirituality in whatever form. And then the fourth is this idea that we're all connected, everything's connected, we're all in community, there's a union. It's really rooted in mystery, in nuance, and right. But okay, why am I saying this, and how does that relate to what you're saying? So, in the second stage in rigidity, it's really the form
Mm-hmm.
that feels safe, and security is like the driving motivation, but we're not made for just security. We're not made just right. And that's why I think at some point in life, what some people have even called the midlife breakdown, or what's the phrase that people use about mid
Crisis.
crisis? Okay, I think crisis. I think sometimes where this comes from is we are made for so much more than just the safe, security, mundane. And there's a longing, a craving, like a, oh my God, like when you said, this is who you are made to be, my dear. And there's that yearning in us all along. And then at some point, the way we've been doing it is just not effing working. And usually, to get to the place of magic, the stage 4, that we're all connected, we're all in this together, the mystery, right? The serendipitous, like everything is, I don't know, the fields are alive with singing kind of magic generally comes through loss, through hardship, through like it's not how we expect the fairy godmother to show up. And in that though, it creates this opening to that core place in us that really longs for the more, the meaning, the possibility. And and it seems to me, and I'd love to get your feedback on this. Well, let me just finish up with where my brain went when you were talking. It's like, and so here we are in a place where someone might be feeling uncertain or ambiguous, but they do have the tremendous longing within them to hold out that hope of, this is possible for you. This is, how did you say it? Like, this is what you were made for, my dear. And really staying true to that inner part of them. And one of the things my girlfriend and I were considering in talking about the evolution of the ego and how all this relates, you know, we uh regularly hear this idea of peeling back layers of the onion, and we were just playing with the concept that maybe this this divine spark is right at the center, is it, she's the one aligned with this meaning, the desire, the, you know, knowing that we're made for something more. And then we, over time and life, we put on our little coats of armor and at different levels or whatever, and forge an identity. And and that and and that we're breaking open to experience that divine spark. Like that's the letting go or the shedding that we do is for the revealing of us, not for the destruction of us. Like I just was thinking of a snake shedding its skin for something brand new. um yeah, there was something else in there, but I'm just going to hold my exuberance because I just got really excited thinking about the way this all works.
Yeah.
And and some people discover the magic sooner, you know. Oh, and then I know what my other thought is, but I'll tell you that in a sec. I'm going to write it down.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a really organic, natural process. And if you think about it from an expanded perspective, there
Mm-hmm.
really is no loss. It's
Mm-hmm.
just it's our perception of what we are identifying with. But that again is what makes it life, right? So it's a constant, I think, evolving process from chaos to container to chaos to container. And when you're talking about that in terms of spiritual development, it's actually across everything, I think. And
Absolutely. I agree. I think I agree. My
yeah,
initial response is agreement.
yeah. So from the spiritual perspective, I think what was coming to my mind was my own like experience as a child, that I grew up so out of the box that felt very chaotic to me
Mm-hmm.
because I was learning. I mean, I know we talked about this in another video, but I grew up going to a different church every month for 30 days, and I got an incredible education. But it always felt like I guess it didn't really feel chaotic, but that was one of the reasons that, like, what the reason we create structure for our kids within the confines of something, so they have something to fight against. I mean, that
Yeah.
was my idea. Like, I want you to break out of this of your own volition. And I'm not going to be like dogmatic, but I want to give you a structure where you can grow. That seedling has a, a trellis or whatever to grow up,
Mhm.
and then that garden needs to become wild. um, and it's like Secret Garden is coming to my mind now, that I think all wisdom and magic comes from children's literature, in my opinion. Those authors were brilliant. But if you think about it, you know, it's our thoughts. Like, whatever we are thinking about is creating our future,
Mhm.
right? So we're tending thistles or we're tending rose gardens, and whatever we are tending in our mind is going to show up in the world. I mean, that's how we're creating our world. Whether you
Mhm.
call it
Mhm.
magic or science, it all meets in the middle. And so there's really not we're not losing anything, except the only reason we experience suffering or loss is because we start identifying with the creation instead of, like we talked about last week, the creator. We are made in the image of, whatever you want to call it, God. We're not made in the image of the creation. We're not just the rock, even though there might be love in the rock. you know we're not confined to that. And I think that's what living is. Like, we keep finding out, oh my gosh, we're more, we're more, we're more, we're
Yeah,
more.
it's an
We
amazing
made
thing.
this happen. We made it happen. We did
Well,
make this happen. This
so
experience came from us.
so the thing that is sticking out that I want to push on a little bit, and that's okay, I keep acorns on my desk, and this is an acorn and of an oak tree, and it gets to become an oak, right? But when the oak is emerging, that acorn experiences a loss, like a death, like that the seed dies for the newness and so yeah, what you were saying, I concur. Like, there's a way in which, when you look at it from a broader, more macro perspective, it's or you use the term expansion. When you look at it through the lens of expansion, absolutely. Now, me coming from a Christian worldview, the passage coming up to my mind is for the joy set before him. So for the expansion of the possibility, the what was happening in this endeavor, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross, despising the shame, and sat down at the right hand of the Father. So there was beating, there was ridicule, there was betrayal, there was actual death. And lo and behold, there was resurrection. And I think that that is like, we live a life that is a continual death resurrection experience.
Yeah.
And the conclusion that I would say is the identical conclusion. Wait, we're like, I never ever 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 knew who I could be, and I know there's more to come. But every time that seed broke open, a new life emerged, and I have had multiple deaths and multiple resurrections in multiple areas of life, and some that I'm not even present to, right? Like I every time I work out, I have some form of death resurrection experience in my muscle dynamic. I don't know. So, and at the time, our perception is suffering or loss, and yet, and I think this brings me all the way back to what I've witnessed, and not perfectly, that I was like, because I've seen people who loss is not breaking them open to expansion. In fact, I was I was framing it in my brain this way. There's a point where we're carrying grief or loss and it accumulates, right? Like we're carrying it and it's building up. And then there becomes a time when it carries us, and it carries us in such a way that it cages us or surrounds us. Like what we were holding at some point holds us and not necessarily the way we want to be held. And I,
Grief. You're talking about the
yeah,
grief.
well, not, yeah, grief, suffering, pain, like people accumulate burdens and then at some point they're under the burden. And then there's some people that burdens are breaking them open and they are experientially. I have seen the difference, and it's not a strict either or, but that is the way I'm sitting here thinking about it now. I see sometimes a life get smaller and smaller and smaller or bigger and bigger and bigger. Like not everyone is experiencing or has eyes to see the magic.
Yeah.
Like I
Well,
think
again, I
twofold.
think I hear what you're saying, and I think that it has so much to do with what we choose to identify with, because I know when I went through like the most major grief period that I did, the light started to dawn when I started to realize that I I had control over my feelings, that
Yeah,
there was nothing happening to me, that I
yeah,
was literally the one causing it to stay that way. And
yeah,
I know, like, when I'm thinking of other people too, when you're saying like I have different clients and people in my life I see, I mean, people will stay for their lifetimes because they
yeah.
identify, like that one example I was giving one day of identifying with the day, the year I got divorced. Well, geez,
That's the story that was coming to my
30
brain.
that was
Hmm.
like 30 years ago or something. And
Yeah,
every time I would see this person, I would say, it still happens. How are you? And the answer will be, well, it's like she's still trying. I'm sorry, I'm laughing. I'm still trying to get over this divorce. So, there's something probably, traumatic from the childhood or whatever. But as long as we are identified with, and this too is in sales, okay? Like if you're going to be identified, and I see it in coaching. I saw it this morning in coaching, where people will argue their limitations because they
yes,
identify
yes,
with the pain or the
yeah.
emotion. They are addicted to it
Hmm.
physiologically even.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
so that's part of the beauty of money, people, because when you pay out it's so clear. I love selling and buying, because you literally take this symbol of value and you put it over where you want to be. And you say, I want to move from this pain to this possibility. And I'm willing to take this money and give you that because I want you to help me get there. I mean, it just makes it so fun and clear and obvious.
yes,
Then there's
yes.
no question. And then you can give yourself permission. It's like you're opening the door. That's why they always say, like, pay to play, right? The less you pay, the less committed you are.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the
No,
lighter the weight, the less ripped up your muscles will be. So, it's such a magical world.
yeah, I I love that. I love I've just got all these pictures and like and then once you have paid, now you're just in the magic, right? Like you've made the investment and you're making the investment for the magic you want in your life, and now that's calling you forward. It's
Right.
behind, right? Like um I think there's something too, even so the coaches that have you pay up front, because
Yeah.
there's nothing in the way. You're paying the whole thing and you're just called into something, and there's nothing between now you and your limitations, it's like all working towards how do I call forward? How do I call forward, right into that magic? And being a person that invests heavily in my own coaching, I get that. It's like I do pay it all up front, and then it's just like, soaring into that. And now
Yeah.
something that's anchoring me into, because here's the thing, every time, at least in my experience, my recovery time lessens, but I go through a painful season. I go through painful seasons in every new endeavor. And
Mhm.
so having something anchoring me to the future that I want to be tethered to
Yeah.
is very helpful. And maybe if I hadn't done it that way, maybe I would have wanted to give up sooner. But I've already made the investment, so I like, you know what I mean?
Can't give up on yourself. It makes it harder. Yeah, I mean, like, I mean, it's the classic thing of we aren't going to, it's impossible to remain stagnant. So you either try to hold on to this identity of the moment, and you're going to inevitably be pushed from some crisis or trauma. You will be pushed to grow, or you allow yourself to imagine it, and then you're pulled. So yeah, I agree. You're married to one or the other.
Well, and I got a mental image, right? Because when you were talking about identification, like we never ever ever drift in the direction of our desires, and we never stay in one place when we're drifting. And every person, any body of water, you get in, you hold on to whatever you're holding on to, raft, float, log, I don't care. You are, the natural drift will always be away from where you are, and it's not going to be to the destination. That takes intention, but I do think the illusion is that we can just hold on to what we have. But no, we drift further away from what we desire in that stance. And somehow my mental image was whatever it is we're holding on to, that is however I'm identifying myself, who I think myself to be, what I think is possible for me. And um and just looking at the time, I think the conclusion that I'm making in my own is that, well, I'll put it this way, because I walked in silence in Big Sur on this majestic hike for a period of time. And I'm looking at, I cannot even tell you every magical thing I got to see, from the seals in the ocean to the colors of the flowers to the different kinds of trees to the, there were trees where the whole treetop was hugging the side of the mountain. Like it was like it had just, it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. Um, but anyway, in this process, I'm having this dialogue with God, and I'm like, how am I getting to enjoy all this? And why would I take this from your hand and not take whatever else you have for me that
Yeah.
opens up magic to me? And I just had this posture of surrender, like, okay, I'm willing to go through whatever it takes. And the truth of the matter is, I don't know what that is. I don't. And yet I do trust that I am a child of God, and there's a divine orchestration, and in whatever I get to go through is also going to be the gift I get to give the world. And I don't even know what that means. That's part of the magic. But those are my
Yeah.
concluding thoughts. How about you?
Well, I have to bring it back to magic is the imagination, because I think what we do in imagination is give it to ourselves what we want. You give yourself what you want in your imagination, and then you will be able to receive it, because you're not fighting like the material world. You're like, it's like an athlete, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you are, when you start doing that in every area of your life, whatever you're doing, your business, selling, you know, whatever the goal is, when you do visualization and you experience the reality of it first in your imagination, then it's just easier to receive it because you already have received it.
Yeah.
You know, you've already put on the princess dress if you're Cinderella. That's all she was doing is encouraging and feeding the imagination. And then she had to say, okay, well, I really want it to become a reality now. I don't just want to pretend. I
Yeah.
officially want it. And
I
then
officially.
you can have it, you know? So, and but if you're stuck in the not having, and I think that's the difference. It's like you're either committed to the not having and the struggle and the seeking, or you allow yourself to have it, and that's magical. Pain or magic, right? It's like, um yeah, so
Michelle, I officially want it. I
what do you want? I
officially
know, I officially want my thing too. I was
receive
telling you about,
magic.
I'm tired of imagining. uh, Sorry. I have to end on that note. I don't know why. Just because. We have like
Oh my goodness.
a secret joke here.
Yes. I wonder how many wise individuals intuited the joke.
People can guess.
Well, yeah, I
Now, all I want is a puppy, just the cutest little puppy. I think that would be a living hell in my life right now. People don't realize, you forget. Have you noticed when people get puppies, like right before they get pregnant, like they come together as a couple, and then the next thing you know, they have a puppy, and then they're going to have children next. Or they their kids go away, COVID comes, and everyone had a new puppy. I wonder what happened to all those puppies that people got during COVID.
I thankfully got my puppy before COVID, and had I recognized how much he would have shed, that he was going to shed, I would not have gotten my puppy. But I will say this, and this
Really?
is
Don't tell him that.
well, it's the truth. But here's the thing that has shifted. I stopped giving attention to the shedding hair, which was literally making me cringe. I started giving attention to all the blessings and benefits
Aw.
of this amazing dog who is a Jack Russell. He's freaking adorable. I love to hike. I have
I
not been
didn't
able
know
to
they
out hike
shed
him.
that much. I didn't
Oh, they
realize.
shed, he sheds. I didn't either. I was ignorant. So be warned. But here's the thing. He can out hike me. I've taken him on 16-mile hikes and he comes back and
That
wants to
is
play fetch with
one
daddy.
heck of a long hike. You go on
And
16-mile hikes.
yes. And
Yeah. Is
my
that
dog,
long?
I think it's pretty awesome. And
How
my
long
dog
does
will do
it
it with
take to
me.
do something like that? I guess I
Um,
never paid attention
five,
to how far I was
12.
hiking. I just
It
feel
all
like it's
depends. I've
getting
done
dark.
10-hour hikes, 12-hour hikes. I've done
Okay, yeah.
5-hour hikes. Yeah, like um, the most proud is, and I haven't done multiples, but where it's starting out at 3 in the morning with a headlamp so that I can get back early enough. That just feels very badass. And
It
one goal of mine.
totally. Yeah, you get a lot of gold stars for that, honey.
So I do have a goal, and that will be to do an overnight by myself. But that's a little ways out, and I haven't given myself a deadline yet because then it will be all the way real. But it's real enough because I've named it.
completely. I 100% support you in that. I mean, you're talking to a Colorado girl here. So hiking is our thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
And
I may be just doing a road trip just to come see my Colorado girl.
that would
Oh,
be amazing. You would
it would
love
be
it.
magical. I
Except
know.
the
Well, I know I
altitude.
love Fort Collins, so
The altitude is different than California. So you have to watch that. Like, really, it's a
yeah,
thing. People
yeah.
come and get altitude sickness, and it's very weird and scary. But the good thing is you can just breathe. Like, they have oxygen things now, like little, like things you can take hike. Really, it's cool.
No, no, no. I totally know what you're talking about. All right, my beautiful friend. Well, that was a fun, magical talk.
I know it was interesting. I mean, I just like talking with you. So I'm thrilled that you had the opportunity to go to Big Sur and have that and find all those magical things. I mean, it really helps you see the world in a different way, doesn't it?
Exactly,
And like you're
exactly.
saying about the dog, I mean, if we could only do that with people, right? And that's what sales is, by the way. That's all we're doing is looking for the magic in that person and pulling it out. And people are so weird about sales. Like I like to talk about it. I like to use the word and then speak about it. It's not creepy unless you are a creep.
Exactly.
Okay, I love you.
I
Send you
love you
lots of
forever.
love. And we will be talking about what we're going to do next week because I think we
Yeah,
might change it up a bit.
I think that's going to be fun and adventurous. All right. See
Yeah.
you later,
Okay.
alligator.
Ciao. Bye.
Ciao.